Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So, this might be the most intimidating episode I have ever attempted because, well, this is going to be the tier rank episode for Lord of the Rings, the actual set, not including the precons. This is not including the precons, and there are 85 legendary creatures from this set to rank. Yeah, that's pretty insane, incredible, and daunting, let's just say that. So yeah, on this episode again, I'm going to be taking you through the tiers that I am placing these legendary creatures into, from S, which is the top tier, all the way down to D, which is the bottom tier. And keep in mind, this is within the vacuum of Lord of the Rings, and there probably are going to be, some mistakes or misspeakings like I just did right there, because my goodness, this is quite the undertaking. Again, it's within the vacuum Lord of the Rings, 85 commanders. Oh my gosh, here we go. Okay, so we're just going to be going based on mana value just to make it easy for me and so I can keep my sanity, okay? So first up, we've got Frodo, Sauron's Bane, a 1-mana commander that essentially can be a one-shot KO on any player later in the game, or not even that later in the game. Basically kind of like a Phage the Untouchable, but a build your own. So a 1/2 Halfling Citizen for a single white mana. Orzhov becomes a if it's a citizen, comes a scout with base hard notice 2/3 and has lifelink. You pay black with a scout, comes a halfling rogue, and basically if it deals commentary to a player, that player loses the game if the rings tempt you 4 more times, otherwise the ring tempts you. Now yes, you could just hit players 4 times with this to get that, but also there are other ways to actually have the ring tempt you. And actually I do have like a multiple screen setup right now to just try to see if I can actually just attempt. Again, there are so many cards, it's hard to memorize what they all do. Here we go, 54 ring tempting mentioning cards. So yeah, quite a few from this set. Now obviously all those won't be in Orzhov. Let's see really quick if I can do that actually. Let's see, 22 actually in Orzhov. There are some repeatable ones as well. Obviously you've got access to black, so you can get some great tutoring. Frodo, again, being a one-shot KO, that can be pretty low to the ground. I actually am going to throw Frodo up into the A tier. I might regret that going on, but you know what? There's just a ton to go through here, so we shall see. It's going to be really tough to actually rank these. Moving on, Arwen. We've got a 2/2 Elf Noble for green-blue. Whenever you scry, put a +1 counter on target creature for green and a blue scry 2. So scrying actually is, pretty abundant, especially in blue. There's plenty of ways to do it. I don't think there's actually an infinite combo here. There might be. Actually, there probably is. There's that one commander otherwise that can actually, make your scry turn into getting counters. I'm sure there's ways to get counters on, when you scry. So essentially, there's probably some infinite combos you can do with that. That being said, yeah, not really all that impactful. That is a really expensive ability right there. Getting counters on things is nice. Does require a good amount of setup, though. Definitely, in my opinion, not the worst commander in the set, though. So let's go with the C tier for now. Moving on. We've got Bill Friendly, Breeze Swindler, 2/1 Human Rogue. When it becomes block, choose 1, create treasure token. Cool, your commander just probably died. Here's a treasure token. Or target opponent gains control target horse you control. If they do, remove Bill Ferny from combat and create 3 treasure tokens. So basically, hey, giving out horses really quick, and this is not including changelings, which yes, there are changelings in mono blue as well. There are 13 horses in mono blue, so not too many. When it comes to changelings, probably like 10 or so. Let's really quick look this up. I misspelled that, of course. Changelings, blue. Anyways, let's just assume, yeah, I don't know, I guess. Let's assume a couple. I misspelled. How did I misspell that? There we go, 13 cards that mention changeling. So yeah, not too many ways to give out horses, really. Pretty terrible commander as is. Yeah, let's just, Bill, I'm sorry, we're going to throw you in the D tier. You're kind of wacky, you're kind of fun, but not for anything competitive. Moving on, we've got Frodo Baggins, the uncommon version. Yeah, there's a lot of Frodos out there. Whenever Frodo, another edge creature in his battlefield under your control, the ring tempts you. As long as Frodo is your ring bearer, it must be blocked. If able, a 1/3 that is in Selesnya colors. Again, low to the ground. Yeah, I mean, that's a decent payoff, I guess. It must be blocked if able, because you could just, like, give it death touch and stuff, or, have triggers that if it's blocked, you get these benefits. Not really all that impactful, though. I mean, the ring tempting you can be impactful once you get that built up. Overall, yeah, pretty not exciting. Again, like, not... I mean, it probably is actually... I'm just going to go with a D tier commander. It's not as impactful as even that Scry commander was previously. Moving on, though, yet another Frodo to make up for the previous Frodo. A 2/2 halfling warrior that costs 1 and a white. Whenever enters the battlefield or attacks, you may attach target equipment you control with mana value 2 or 3 to Frodo. And there's quite a few good ones. As long as it should prevent all damage that be dealt to Frodo. So yeah, basically you just keep swinging away for, without having to worry about it, really. When it comes to equipment that actually costs 2 or 3, let's see, CMC 2, we've got 163. Comes as 3, we've got 110. So yeah, quite a bit and a lot of good ones in there. Keep in mind, that does count the sword cycle. So if you had a higher budget, that could be quite great. You're basically kind of building a Voltron commander, though. I'd say overall this is probably a middle of the road commander. Not terrible. Again, cheating on those, equip costs can be great. But yeah, it does take a while to kind of build that up. So keep that in mind. Moving on. Goldberry River Daughter. Now, this is a very interesting commander. One that I think has a lot of potential for some really cool designs for decks, but maybe not the most powerful one. Tap move a counter of each kind. Not on Goldberry River Daughter from another target permanent you control onto Goldberry. Pay a blue and tap move 1 or more counters from Goldberry onto another target permanent you control if you do draw a card. So a good amount of little playing around with counters there. Like you can move them away from sagas, which can be great. It does, you need some untap effects as well to really take the most advantage of this commander, though. Again, some really cool things can happen with this. You can move around, keyword counters as well. Getting an indestructible counter on this one or a hexproof one can be crucial. That being said, yes, there's some really cool things that you can do with it. Goldberry, once you're set up, you can do some really cool things. Definitely not, in my opinion, the worst of the commanders, but I'm going to put Goldberry solidly in the C tier. So again, toward the bottom, but not quite the bottom. Moving on, Golem Patient Plotter. This one is one of the many golems. A 3/1 halfling that says, when it leaves the battlefield, the ring tempts you by paying a black. You can sacrifice a creature, turn golem from your grave to your hand, activate as a sorcery. So kind of like a reassembling skeleton-ish, but instead of going back into play, goes in your hand, and there is a requirement to actually sacrifice a creature. That being said, yeah, you are incentivized for Golem to actually leave the battlefield. So whether that's, you could sacrifice, maybe you could feign death to bring it right back. You could also obviously really take advantage of sacrificing creatures like an aristocrat-style strategy. Yeah, there's some value there. There's definitely value in getting around the commander tax. So yeah, you can definitely utilize, again, some sacrifice outlets that might even generate you mana or card advantage. Golem is definitely not the worst. There is a lot of build around to be had with it, though. I'll put Golem. I think there's going to be a good amount of C tier commanders. I'm worried about that one. We'll see, though. So yeah, Golem, Patient Plotter. I think you're a C tier commander. Moving on, another Golem with the exact same mana value and mana cost. Golem Scheming Guide. 2/1 halfling that says, when it attacks, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put them back in any order, then choose land or non-land. An opponent guesses whether the top card of your library is the chosen kind. Reveal that card. If they guess right, remove Golem from combat. Otherwise, you draw a card and Golem can't be blocked this turn. So, yeah, this is just an interesting low-to-the-ground commander that can provide you a good amount of card advantage throughout the game, potentially, depending on how your opponent's guess is. And, again, you could, maybe make some buddies with some, other opponents. Be like, hey, you know what? Let's make a deal, all right? 2 damage is not a lot, so let's just... I'll tell you what it is, and then you can guess wrong intentionally. So yeah, you could do some weird kind of deals with that. Otherwise, you probably have a 50-50 shot of them actually guessing correctly. So yeah, you can get a good amount of card advantage out of this, but also, Golem being, unblockable is, removed from combat. It's nice because it's protected, but you're not going to be like Voltroning someone out most likely with this. Now, me saying that, someone's going to Voltron me out with this. Regardless, yeah, I think overall, Golem, oh gosh, you're not the worst, but you're definitely not the best. We'll throw you in C tier. Again, I think there's probably going to be a good amount in C tier. Here we go. Next up, Gorbag of -Morgul, a 2/2 Orc Soldier for 1 and a black. Whenever a goblin or orc you control does counter to a player, you may sacrifice it when you do choose 1. Draw a card, create a treasure token. Now, this one actually has a good amount of potential. Now, when it comes to it being a goblin commander, that would obviously have a lot more potential if it was in, red. It is not in red, unfortunately, so it does not have that. Now, there are 33 goblins in red. When it comes to actually cards that mention goblin, too, like, making goblin tokens potentially, there's, 40, apparently, in mono black as well. So a good amount, and actually some of those could, mention essentially like Goblin Charbelcher comes in that too. So just keep that in mind. Around 40, I should say. So there's a decent amount for like a mono black Goblin deck. Now, obviously you can go Orc or Goblin. There's not really all that many Orcs out there. So... yes, you could probably just go both, but, when it comes to, like, a Goblin commander compared to other ones, it's not all that great. I guess there's 23 Orcs out there, okay, so keep that in mind. Obviously, amass Orcs as well is now a thing, so that's kind of where it's playing in that. That being said, overall, yeah, I mean, a good amount of, card draw, a good amount of treasures can be made with this, obviously, but still, you are limited to a creature type, or creature types, I should say, that aren't favorable in this, color. So let's go with C tier. Moving on. Lotho, Corrupt Sheriff. I love this card. I think it's really cool. A 2/1 Halfling Rogue for white-black. So Orzhov, whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, you lose 1 life and create a treasure token. Yeah, I think this commander has a ton of potential. I mean, basically, ways to incentivize other players casting a lot of spells. You can, ramp everyone. There's cards like that in mono white, even. You can also make it so like spells cost less too, like Helm of Awakening. You can help players just incentivize them to cast more and more spells, essentially. So that can be a good way to go about this and get more and more treasure tokens. You can also double up your treasure tokens on a procession. You can drain your opponents like Marionette Master. You can really take advantage of those kinds of things. And yeah, that loss of life can actually turn into a good thing for you by maybe life swapping an opponent as well. So yeah, Lotho has a ton of potential, I think. Again, a loaded young commander that can give you an absurd amount of mana advantage with those treasures. Let's put Lotho up in the A tier. Definitely not top tier in my opinion at this point. But yeah, definitely a commander that can pack a punch with the right build. Moving on. I'm not even going to attempt that name. Orca Captain. A 2/2 Orc Soldier with Menace. If one or more +1 counters to be put on an army, goblin, or orc you control, that many +1 are put on instead. Yeah, I mean, I guess goblin, orc, tribal, you do get access to red. So again, getting the goblins is good. But cool, you get extra counters on them. I mean, the armies, don't really care about the armies, in my opinion, really all that much. Sure, they're all right. But yeah, you're probably, if you're going to be building this like in the best way, you're probably just going to focus on like goblin tribal, just goblin tribal basically. And yeah, getting counters on them, I guess, which goblins sometimes care about, but really don't care all that much about. There's not too many great ways to get a lot of counters on your team. Again, you're not in green. Yeah, just kind of, again, a bit limiting. So let's go with the C tier. Poor Frodo's just all alone over there in the B tier right now. We'll get someone there for you, Frodo. Don't worry. Moving on. Mary Brandybuck, 2/2 Halfling Citizen. Whenever one or more Halflings you control attack a player, create a food token. I need to look real quick. Good thing I've got this other screen ready. I need to look real quick just how many Halflings there even are in mono green. I can't imagine that many. There weren't really that many. I think there's something like the D&D sets, but there weren't. I mean, other than D&D and Lord of the Rings, how many are actually in there? Yeah, you've got 8 Halflings in mono green. So, sure, you could also include changelings as well, I guess, if you really want to. They're 14. So, yeah, not really all that impactful, Mary. And cool, you get food tokens. Big whoop. So, yeah, Mary, I am sorry, but D tier. Definitely D tier, in my opinion. Mono green halflings. No, thank you. Moving on. Another Mary. Mary Esquire of Rowan. A 2/2 halfling knight with haste. First strike as long as it's equipped. Cool. Whenever you attack with Mary, another legendary creature, draw a card. Okay, so legendary creature tribal, essentially, in Boros. Yes, you have haste with this, so you can swing right away and get a card. First strike as long as it's equipped. So, yeah, you need some equipment that obviously gives a lot of power. You don't really care too much about that toughness, I guess. So, cool. You can do stuff like that. The payoff isn't all that great at all. Again, I'm worried that my C tier is going to get quite clogged, but, hey, if it's a C tier commander, it's a C tier commander. So we're just going to, play with the cards that you're dealt, right? Essentially, here we go. So that is a C tier commander, in my opinion. Moving on. Pippin, Guard of the Citadel. Also 2 mana, white-blue, 2/2 halfling soldier, vigilance, ward 1. Tap into target creature control gains protection for the card type of your choice until of turn. Can be blocked, targeted, dealt damage, and equipped by anything of that type. Kind of like Mom, yeah, essentially, but now as a commander. So, yeah, I mean, that's interesting. You can protect your creatures very well. I don't know how valuable vigilance is going to be for a 2/2. You could pump this quite a bit to try to make it more valuable. Ward 1, it's a slight deterrent. Yeah, from it actually getting targeted. Though I don't know if your opponents are actually really going to target it because it's probably not doing all that much. Although if you've got a good amount of untap effects, obviously you can protect your other creatures quite well. Unfortunately, Pippin can't protect itself. Oh, goodness. Overall, though, yeah, I mean, it feels like C or D. Probably, I mean, if there was a range in between that, I'd probably put that. But protecting other creatures is nice. I mean, you don't know if you're really building things around that. Sure, you could probably build some combos in there with creatures that you can protect. Oh, and you can also get creatures through, I guess, too. So, yeah, let's throw you in C. I'm going to end up with far too many Cs. Comment below on how I've got too many Cs already. Moving on. Prince Imrahil the Fair. 2/2 human noble. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. yeah, once you're set up properly, that's pretty easy to do, potentially on every single turn to draw 2 cards. So, yeah, I mean, even if you just have, say, like a Thought Reflection in play or Teferi's Latest Insight, that doubles up your card draw. And therefore, yeah, on your opponent's turns, all you need to do is have one way to draw a card, and you can very easily do that. Yeah, you can make an army pretty quickly, actually, with this kind of commander, pretty low to the ground. Obviously, you're also in colors, I should say, mostly, you know, in white, that you have a lot of great anthems as well, and, you know, levitation, ways to get your creatures through in blue, too. So, yeah, overall, I think just a middle-of-the-road commander, Frodo, I think you finally have a friend, and that would be, apparently, Prince Emerald. So there you go. Best buds. Next up, Samwise Gamgee. I mean, Frodo's real best friend. A Celestia commander for 2/2 halfling peasant. Whenever another non-token creature in his battlefield you control, create a food token. Sacrifice 3 foods. Return target historic card from your graveyard to your hand. Artifacts, legendary sagas, historic. I am sure, I am positive there are plenty of ways to just break this wide open. I mean, I could even just think of just one simple way. Essentially, you know, just get some, I guess it's somewhat complex with a couple of cards, but yeah. Doubling up your tokens, obviously, is an incredible thing. So yeah, with your food tokens even, it doesn't really matter what kind of token they are. So sure, get Doubling Seas in play, get Annoyed Procession, get those kinds of cards in play. Double up your tokens, so every single time a non-token creature is battlefield, you get like 3 tokens, and then sure, you can sacrifice those, you know, sacrifice the other creature with like a Ashnod's Altar if it's an artifact creature, essentially. And then, you know, bring it back in your hand. You know, if it's an Ornithopter, essentially you can do this an infinite amount of times. Sure, and I'm sure you've got other sacrifice out things. This one can definitely be broken with the right setup. It does take a good amount to actually set it up. You can actually utilize those food tokens, you know, with Quark Clan Ironworks, that kind of stuff too. Overall, an interesting commander. I think that overall, I would just, you know what, just, you know, be flavorful as well. And actually, I do think it's a B tier commander. Join Frodo and Prince Emerald in the B tier. There you go. All best buds. Moving on, another Samwise, the Stout-Hearted. 2/1 halfling peasant with flash enters the battlefield. Choose up to 1 target permanent card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. Return to your hand the Ring Tempts You. The Ring Tempting You is nice. You are in mono white with this one, so no offense, mono white players, but still, even with the recent, you know, additions to mono white over the past year, still at a slight disadvantage in my opinion compared to other colors, but it is getting better. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like that one, oh gosh, there's that one creature that essentially gets back things that are from the graveyard as well. That's an uncommon artifact, costs 3. Can't remember what it's called. Regardless, but this is somewhat similar to that for 2 mana at flash speed. That's nice. I'm sure there's some combos as well. You can do this too. But overall, I think really not nearly as impactful as some other ones. So let's just put you, again, in the C tier. Not the worst, but definitely nowhere near the best. Next up, Aragorn Company Leader. 3/3 Human Ranger, 4/3 mana in Selesnya. Whenever the ring tempts you, if you choose a creature other than Aragorn, Company Leader, as your ring bearer, put your choice of a counter from among First Strike, Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink on Aragorn. Whenever you put one or more counters on Aragorn, put one of each of those kinds of counters up to one other target creature. Interesting. So yeah, this one is kind of like a counter distributor. Basically, yeah, you do need to have the ring tempting you quite a bit to actually make the most of this. When it comes to the ring tempting you, we probably have, oh goodness, quick. ID, GW, we're going. And of course, a misspelling in the search. Real quick, we got it. The ring tempting you, basically around probably 15 to 20 or so. So not too many ways in Selesnya to do that. Obviously, you have some tutors for creatures and whatnot to actually do that. So yeah, overall, just really not all that impactful. Yeah, you can give your commander like Death Touch and Lifelink. You can distribute other counters as well. I mean, really, in my opinion, not all that impactful at all. Requires some setup to actually do anything. Aragorn, I'm very sorry, but you are, in my opinion, probably a D tier commander. Actually, I think you're even below the other commanders that I've mentioned so far. Moving on, Arwen, Mortal Queen. Exact same mana value, mana cost, 2/2 Elf Noble. Enters the battlefield, indestructible counter on it. Pay 1 Riven indestructible counter from it. Target creature gains indestructible on the turn. Put a +1 counter, a lifelink counter on that creature, and a +1 counter, a lifelink counter on Arwen. This commander actually has a good amount of potential when it comes to protecting things really, really well. Yes, you only get 1 indestructible counter when this enters the battlefield. That being said, unlike the Myojin, this is an ETB from wherever. It doesn't have to be cast from your hand. So ETB from the command zone, ETB from a blink. You can reset that counter very easily. On top of that, yeah, you've got access to a lot of proliferate effects as well. So you can get a lot of counters on this to protect it a lot. You also ways to distribute those counters out to your team as well. And even if you're not distributing them, yeah, you can just pay 1 mana, remove 1 from this, protect another creature. Yeah, definitely can protect some key pieces. It can be kind of just like other creatures are the actual focus of this deck. Let's give them counters. Let's give them lifelink. Let's actually protect them. And this is just kind of the engine that can protect them very well. Go into set properly, that can go pretty well. So yeah, I think overall, Arwen, Mortal Queen, let's throw you up in the B tier. And that might be, it's kind of one of those, I think like it's a B to a C, like a B minus probably is what it is. But you know what? We only have 5 tiers, so we'll stick with that. Next up, Bilbo, Retired Burglar. A 1/3 halfling rogue that is in Is It. that says when it enters the battlefield or leaves the battlefield, the ring tempts you. Whenever Bilbo deals counter to a player, create a treasure token. Yeah, the ring tempting you is nice. It can help Bilbo get through in a lot of situations to start off. And sure, I mean, dealing combat damage to a player and getting a treasure token is nice as well, but yeah, not really all that impactful overall. I mean, sure, you get a little bit of, you know, extra additional advantage out of this, but overall, yeah, not really all that impactful. I mean, yeah, you can give double strike. You can, you know, have ways to get it unblockable to get through. Still, overall, I think a D tier commander. Sorry, Bilbo. My bad, but you're down there. Moving on. Boromir, Warden of the Tower. A 3/3 human soldier of vigilance. Whenever opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. That's nice. I mean, very specific in what you are working up against. This can really stop some big spells from happening, big effects from happening. That being said, yeah, that's very situational. Sacrifice Boromir, Warden of the Tower, creatures control, get indestructible, turn the ring tempts you. This is one of those commanders that if it was actually in black as well, that would probably be a bit more impactful because, yeah, you would have access to like Feign Death type effects to bring it right back. That being said, this is just a commander that can basically kind of like protect you. It's like a selfless spirit for you, essentially. It can protect your team when you need it to protect. The ring tempts you. Cool. But you have to recast your commander most likely. There are some reanimation effects essentially in mono white, but not all that many. Again, if you had access to black, this would be a much better commander. Boromir, gosh. Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to have to throw you, I think, in the D tier. I don't know if I feel good about that. It's like a D plus, C minus kind of commander. I'll just throw you in the D tier for now. Maybe I'm just trying to make it look better with the C tier, not getting overflowed. Fine. You know what, Boromir? Let's throw you in the C tier. You can protect the team pretty well. Next up, Denethor, Ruling Steward, a 2/4 human noble for 1 white/black. Beginning of your end step, if a creature died in your control this turn, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Pay 2, sacrifice a creature, you don't lose 1 life, and you gain 1 life. This one, in my opinion, is pretty terrible. Again, if this was every single end step, that would be nice. It is just your end step. So you are limited to, with 1 trip around the table, just 1 creature. I mean, unless you have any other doubling effects or whatnot, just 1 creature. That is a very, very minimal effect. Sacrifice a creature, draining opponents. There's more effective ways to do that. Sure, this can be an aristocrat style commander that can, you know, be an outlet for you and a slight token generator. Overall, just really not impactful at all, though. So, not really going to spend too much time on you. Let's put you in the D tier. Moving on. Elrond, Lord of Rivendell, a 3/2 elf noble for 3 mana in total in blue. Whenever Elrond or another creature in the battlefield under control, scry 1. The second time this ability is rolled this turn, the ring tempts you. This one, I mean, yeah, scrying is not card advantage, but it is good card selection, so you can scry a lot. This does not limit to just non-token creatures, so that is huge. If that did, I'd probably just throw this in the D tier right away. The ring tempting you is nice. To build that up, that can happen quite quickly. Yeah, the second time is going to happen no time at all. Probably going to be a token strategy with this one, scrying a ton. Again, if you can get that one Sphinx that turns scrying into drawing, yeah, that can be really impactful. Overall, Elrond, I don't think you're in the last tier, but you are in, with many others, the C tier. Next up, we've got Galadriel of Lothro. Oh goodness, this is just nope. I'm just gonna keep that in. We're gonna keep going. Lothrolian. Lord of the Rings fans out there, yell at me in the comments below, please. Thank you. 3/3 elf noble that is in Simic. Whenever the ring tempts you, if you choose a creature other than Galadriel as your ring bearer, scry 3. Whenever you scry, you may reveal the top card of your library. If a land is revealed this way, put on the battlefield tapped. Yeah, this has the potential to put an absurd amount of lands in play. And yeah, that ring tempting you again. You are limited to the number of ring tempting you effects. There are a decent amount, but not overly many. There are some repeatable ones as well, so you can scry a good amount with that. That being said, I wouldn't just depend on this as your scry engine. In fact, I depend on a lot of other things to scry. And by scrying a ton, hey, you know what? Just get a ton of lands into play. So this can just dump an absurd amount of lands into play, and you can get way ahead of opponents. Simic players love that. Obviously, you've got other avenues for card draw as well, like I mentioned. That one Sphinx that I keep forgetting the actual name of. So A-tier commander right there, I believe. Just with the amount of lands that you can get into play, the amount of actual, I mean, just absurdity that you can do with this kind of a commander. Let's really quick look up that Sphinx so I'm not actually forgetting this. But yeah, CMC 6, I believe. We've got Elegith. There we go. Elegith Crossroads Archer. Every single time I mention Sphinx that actually draws instead of scries, that's probably what I'm talking about. So let's go with that. Moving on. Gimli, Mournful Avenger, a 3/2 dwarf warrior that is in Gruul. Has indestructible as long as 2 or more creatures died under your control this turn. Another creature you control dies, you get a counter on Gimli. This ability resolves for the 3rd time this turn. Gimli fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So, I mean, this is kind of like Aristocrats-esque Gruul. I mean, Gimli can be really hard to take out if you've got a free sacrifice outlet out there, like Goblin Bombardment essentially, and a lot of tokens, and there's plenty of ways to make tokens in both red and green, so you can just have kind of creatures ready to go and then just sacrifice them to protect Gimli. On top of that, whenever you get, those third counters on Gimli, which you can have it hit for a good amount, you can fight a creature under control, you can take it out. Of course, you can have benefits from fighting a creature as well. There's other ways to take advantage of that. You can get more counters on Gimli, with like doubling season, that kind of stuff as well. Yeah, you can turn Gimli pretty quickly into a force to be reckoned with, and again, Gimli with that indestructible can be pretty huge. Yeah, overall, I'd say probably a middling commander. If you're going to go Voltron or whatnot with it. Again, it's a different kind of Voltron, I guess I should say, but still, I think a B tier commander overall. There's some potential for it. It can protect itself. It can take creatures out, but overall, yeah, a decent amount of setup is required. Next up, Glorfindel, Dauntless Rescuer, a 3/2 Elf Noble. Whenever you scry, choose one, and it gains +1/+1 until end of turn. Can't be blocked this turn if able, or must be blocked essentially. Or sorry, must be blocked this turn if able. Can't be blocked by more than one creature each combat this turn. So that's kind of interesting. You can kind of play around with that depending on the situation that you're in. If you want to swing at a player that essentially, isn't going to want to block because you can take out their important creatures, that's great. It must be blocked. Can't be blocked by more than one. Or, must be blocked. So, yeah, you can get it through, or you can essentially just take a creature out with it. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's just, it's really not all that impactful. Scrying, yeah, you need like some instant speed scry for some, I guess not instant speed beforehand, but still. Overall, I'd say really not impactful. Let's go with a D tier commander. Next up, Glowing Dwarf Emissary. Whenever you cast a historic spell, create treasure tokens. Ability triggers only once each turn. If that was not, if that text was not there, this would be an S tier commander. Easily tap sacrifice creature, go target creature. Because of that restriction, this limits it quite a bit, though. There's still some pretty broken things you can do with it, I'm sure. And yeah, I'd probably go Artifact Tribal essentially with this one and be able to really use and abuse that ability. That being said, yeah, you'd have to probably blink this commander quite a bit to actually really get the most value out of it. You need like Vidalcan Ori in play as well to be able to play on your opponent's turns too. Sacrifice creatures to goat, that's nice. There are also other ways to goat in mono red. Overall, I think Glowing is a good commander. I think, again, it would have been broken without that restriction. I'm glad the restriction is there, though. And Glowing overall, I think you're a B tier commander. Next up, Grishnuk. Let's go with that. Brash Instigator, probably wrong. 1/1 Goblin Soldier for 2 and a red. Whenever it enters the battlefield, amass orcs 2. When you do, until end of turn, gain control of target non-legendary creature opponent controls with power less than or equal to the amassed army's power. Untap the creature gains haste till end of turn. Unfortunately, there really aren't too many ways to blink in mono red. There are a couple. There are also ways to make a copy of this too, so you could do that as well. Yeah, you could build up a pretty big orc army essentially and then be able to basically steal any creature. It does require a good amount of setup though. Overall, really not all that impactful. I would have some sacrifice outlets as well for this one too. Yeah, just not all that impactful, but not the worst, I don't think. I think my gut says let's go with a C tier commander for this one. Moving on. Grima Wormtongue, a 1/4 human advisor for 2 and a black. Your opponents can't gain life. Tap sacrifice another creature, target player loses 1 life. The sacrifice creature was legendary, amass orcs 2. Okay, so kind of like aristocrats, legendary, tribal. Your opponents can't gain life. That's nice. That being said, this is dealt with and they can. Yeah, you can take your opponents down with this. Overall, just not a lot going on with it. Target player losing 1 life. It probably, it could very easily be each opponent lose 1 life, but it's not. Sure, you can amass some orcs as well. Overall, just not very impactful. I'm sorry. Grima Wormtongue, you are a D tier commander. Moving on. We've got Lorth of the Healing House, a 1/4 human cleric for 2 and a blue. Tap, untap, no target permanent. Tap, untap 2 other target legendary creatures. This one is like untapped tribal, and there are some crazy shenanigans that you can do with it. Yeah, if you like Sakashima clone this, you can definitely go infinite in many ways. There's plenty of actually other ways to go infinite with it. That being said, it does require some setup. Mono blue isn't the best at tutoring for, say, a creature like Sakashima. That being said, it is good at tutoring for artifacts, and like Mirror Box and clones actually work with it as well. So yeah, you can pretty easily at some point just go infinite and do some crazy things. Yeah, I think overall this one is really hard to judge because it does depend on the deck. I do think actually this one is an A tier commander. I think that this one, with the right build, can go infinite really quickly with it and do a lot of different things. Again, like Arcanus Infinite could be pretty fun. Being able to untap that a lot, draw your entire deck. Probably best Oracle, shenanigans as well. Moving on. Legolas, Master Archer. I like the design of this one. 1/4 reach. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Legolas, get a counter on it. Whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you don't control, Legolas deals damage equal to its power up to one target creature. This can take out quite a few creatures. I mean, sure, you can cast some spells that target Legolas. There are obviously other ways to, get more power into Legolas. I mean, just a Blackblade Reforged could do it for you, essentially, without having to worry about casting spell after spell after spell to target this. And, yeah, it just cares about power, doesn't care about the number of counters on it. So basically all your removal spells, all your targeted spells now become basically kind of like doubled. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a targeted removal spell. You can just have like a cantrip that targets any creature, and you do so on one of your opponent's creatures, take creatures out. Yeah, this can be a pretty effective commander. Again, it is limited mono green. It is, only as impactful as it can be, really. Let's go with a C tier commander. I don't think it's quite up to the B tier level. Next up, Lobelia Sackville Baggins, a 2/3 Flash Menace Halfling Citizen. That says, when it enters the battlefield, exile target creature card from an opponent's graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn, then create extra tokens to the exile card's power. I'm sure there's some infinite shenanigans that you can do with this. Being able to flash this in, that's really good. And again, it's based on a creature's power. If your opponent's creatures have a good amount of power, cool. Wait till they get taken out or take them out yourself. And then, yeah, just get a ton of mana from this. And again, I'm sure that there are plenty of pretty crazy combos that you can do with this, where you could, maybe sacrifice it, feign death, bring it back, exile something bigger, get even more treasure tokens, get netting mana every single time. Yeah, I think overall this is an interesting one. It probably requires the perfect situation really for it to work really well, but you could set yourself up really well with it. I'm gonna say let's go with a B tier commander. This one's got some potential, the amount of treasure that can get you just out of nowhere. Next up, Peregrine Took. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus additional food are created instead. Cool. Sacrifice 3 foods, draw a card. Nice. I mean, not the worst kind of a commander. I mean, giving you food tokens. Food tokens are probably up there among the worst tokens that you'd probably want. I mean, you'd definitely rather have treasures. You'd probably rather have clues as well. The card draw. Getting some life, that's nice. Sure, you can actually draw some cards with this too, getting some food. Yeah, I mean, luckily this doesn't just count, whenever one or more food tokens are created, create an extra. No, this is any kind of token, so even creature tokens can create a lot for you. And of course, you can utilize those food tokens in other ways as well, like sacrificing artifacts with, again, like Karkland Ironworks. Giving extra tokens is never going to be a bad thing. I mean, there are some pretty interesting things that you can do with this. I mean, a Peregrine Took, I think that this is like in between like a C+ and a D, or sorry, C+ and a B commander. Overall, oh gosh, oh no, oh gosh, this is where I start getting yelled at in the comments below. Let's throw you up in the, oh, are you a B tier commander? Let's throw you up the B tier commander. There's some potential you can do with those food tokens. Okay, I believe that you could do some potential with that. And again, with like doubling season, you can get even more an absurd amount. Get a good amount of card draw with that too. Moving on, Rosie, Cotton of South Lane, a 1/1 halfling peasant. When it enters the battlefield, create a food token. Whenever you create a token, you get a counter target creature you control other than Rosie. Yeah, food token tribal, really not all that impactful, especially in mono white. Sure, you've got the ETB you can use and abuse, but again, the payoff isn't really all that great. One counter on a creature. Rosie, I am very sorry, but I think immediately I just thought, hey, you're probably D tier commander. I'm very sorry, Rosie. Okay, anyways, moving on. Smeagol, Helpful Guide. 4/2 halfling that says at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under control this turn, the ring tempts you. When the ring tempts you, target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land card. That card on the battlefield tapped under control, and the rest into their graveyard. Now, this one's quite interesting again. Basically, hey, creature died under control this turn. It's only at your end step. Again, your end step is a limitation where you're basically only going to be getting that ring tempt once. There are other ways for the ring to tempt you on your opponent's turns as well. Yeah, I mean, being able to say, let's get lands into play for free and mill players. I mean, this is, I mean, you're ramping, that's good, but overall, I mean, you're not the worst commander. You're just not the best. There are a good amount of ways for the ring to tempt you. So, yeah, let's go with the C tier commander. I'm sorry, Smeagol. C tier. Okay, moving on. Theoden, King of Rohan. A 2/3 human noble that says whenever it or another human enters the battlefield under your control, a target creature gains double strike until end of turn. I mean, that can only really be so impactful. This is, human tribal. There are a decent amount of humans, I should say, yes, in Boros. So human tribal, cool. But the payoff of that is just okay. I mean, it's more impactful just to be like, oh yeah, I'll just use one of the many ways to give my entire army double strike. There are a decent amount of ways in red and white to do so. So instead of just getting like these one-off effects, being able to give your entire army double strike is nice. I mean, sure, there's some instant speed, like create some humans. Sure, you can do that as like a nice combat trick. Overall, not terrible, not great. Theoden, King of Rohan, let's go with a C tier commander. Moving on. Eowyn, Lady of Rohan. A 2/4 Human Noble for 3 mana in mono white. Beginning of combat your turn, target creature gains your choice of first strike or vigilance on turn. If that creature is equipped, it gains first strike and vigilance on turn. Instead, equip abilities you activate cost bonus to activate. That cost reduction is nice for equip abilities. You are now limited to mono white. Sure, having equipment on our creatures already gives them vigilance and first strike. That's nice. I mean, this one's just pretty not very impactful. I mean, that reduction of equip abilities is, again, probably the best part of this. It's still not really all that impactful. Yeah, I think overall, I'm going to have to throw you in the D tier. Sorry about that. Moving on. We're going up to 4 mana now. Aragorn the Uniter. Here we go. A 5/5 Human Noble for 4 mana in red, green, white, and blue. Whenever you cast a white spell, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Whenever you cast a blue spell, scry 2. Whenever you cast a red spell, Aragorn the Uniter deals 3 damage to target opponent. Whenever you cast a green spell, target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. You get an absurd amount of values for the spells you're casting. I mean, just think about, like, even if you just go, like, Charm Tribal, you're casting, like, all the 3 mana charms. Yeah, you're paying 3 mana, you're getting whatever that charm's effect is, and that's a very flexible thing usually. Or it always is, essentially. And then, yeah, hey, you get all of these different benefits, or at least 3 of the 4. Of course, there's a couple other 4-color spells as well you can utilize to get all of them, but yeah, the more colors you cast, the better it's got to be. Of course, there's also ways. I'm going to keep mentioning Elgith, apparently, because Scry is great in this set. Hey, instead of it just being Scry 2, draw 2 once you get Elgith in place. So yeah, there are some non-multicolor spells you can utilize, but yeah, multicolor, just additional tons of benefit tribal is huge. Again, lightning bolts, creature generation, card selection, potentially even advantage again with Elgith, and then also giant pump effects. Your opponents aren't going to know how to block or what to do. This can be pretty absurd. Aragorn the Uniter, and you get access to so many great colors as well. I'm going to throw you up in the S tier. You're our first S tier commander. Next up, Bill the Pony. I love you, Bill. 1/4 horse for 3 and a white. Bill the Pony enters the battlefield, create 2 food tokens. Sacrifice a food until on turn target creature control assigns combat damage equal to toughness rather than its power. Yeah, I mean, kind of like Wall Tribal, I guess. I mean, toughness tribal, I should say more, so Walls really can't attack unless you got other ways to make them attack. ETB for 2 food tokens. There are some broken things that you can do with that, like Annoy Procession, I'm sure, and then Eldrazi Displacer, and, what's the other one? Crocodile Ironworks. There we go. So yeah, there are some infinite combos with this as well. That being said, they're not quite as many with other things too. I mean, so Bill can do some pretty crazy things, but also, I mean, yeah, there's some toughness shenanigans obviously you can work with as well. Having some big toughness creatures can really make them hit a lot harder. Bill, you're not the worst. You're not the best. Again, you've got some combo potential. Let's throw you up in the C tier. Moving on. Butterbur, Bree, Innkeeper. A 3/3 human peasant at the beginning of your end step. If you don't control a food, create a food token. That's pretty awful. So, yeah. I mean, again, no offense to food, but food is probably the worst of the tokens or many of the tokens out there. Gaining life, sure, there's some things that you can benefit from that. Getting just 1 if you don't have any food tokens. Yeah, and if you do have food tokens, you get nothing of this commander. So, a D tier commander in my opinion. Sorry, Butterbur. Moving on, let's go on to Celeborn the Wise, a 3/3 elf noble for 3 and a green. Whenever you attack with one of our elves, scry 1. Whenever you scry, Celeborn the Wise gets +1 until I've turned for each card looked at while scrying this way. This one limits for whatever reason. I mean, I don't know if it really needed that. I mean, as much, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it did. Like, even a per player, like, would have given you more if you could attack, you know, a number of elves per player, or what, not per player, but, you know, getting 1 for each player would be great. But yeah, attack with 1 more elves, scry 1. Cool. You're gonna end up scrying 1 because you're gonna go elf tribal or just attack with this commander. No, thank you. I mean, and yeah, you can hit decently hard once you get scrying set up. There is a good amount of ways scrying green, but not as many as other colors like, you know, blue. Overall, yeah, you might be wise, but you are a D tier commander. Next up, let's move on to Eleanor Gardner. A 2/4 halfling scout for 4 mana in green. Enters battlefield, get a food token. Seems to be a lot of that going on. Give your end step. If you sacrifice food this turn, you may search your life for a basic land card from the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Okay, so I mean, a decent amount of land generation with this, but again, limited to just your end step. I don't know if that was necessary. This could have been on anyone's end step, but yeah, sure. I mean, pay mana, sacrifice foods, ramp. Basically get a rampant growth when this enters the battlefield, kind of. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty bad. I mean, ramping is nice, but food token, focus, yeah, I don't know. Overall, and yes, there are other ways to sacrifice foods. It doesn't be actually sacrifice by paying 2 into it. Corrupt Clean Ironworks, cool. There you go. I keep mentioning that card, but yeah, ways to sacrifice artifacts. There are ways to do that outside of that. Overall, I mean, again, yes, it does give you some ramp, but I feel like you are, yeah, again, limited to just your end step. It was not limited to just your end step, but a lot more impactful. let's go with a D tier commander. You're probably like a D plus C minus, but we'll just go with that. Moving on, Elrond, Master of Healing. 4/4 Elf Noble. Whenever you scry, you get a counter on each up to X creatures X, the number of cards you looked at while scrying this way. Whenever a creature control with a plus counter on it comes to target of a spell or ability opponent controls, you may draw a card. Yeah, I mean, this can give you a good amount of, well, benefits for scrying again, which can be a great amount of card selection. On top of that, hey, some card advantage if your opponents actually target your things, which is nice. There are definitely more impactful commanders out there in this set. Sure, I mean, there's a decent amount of ways to scry. I'll probably put you in the C tier, though. I don't think you're quite up to the B tier. Next up, let's go with Erkenbrand, Lord of Westfold, a 3/3 human soldier. Whenever it or another human enters the battlefield under your control, creature control +1/+1/+0 until end of turn. So making a good amount of humans can help you hit for a good amount. Again, there are ways to make human creature tokens in red, but yeah, I mean, instant speed shenanigans could be had with this too. I'd say most of your effects are probably not going to be instant speed, so your opponents probably know how to block. There are some ways to get first strike as well, or ways to get your creatures through. I mean, ways to make it so no creatures can block too. Yeah, I mean, you can pump your creatures a good amount with this. Overall, not the most impactful of a commander, though. Yeah, I don't think you're even up to the C tier, though. Let's go with a D tier commander for now. Okay. Moving on, Faramir Field Commander, a 3/3 human soldier. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died you control this turn, draw a card. And then whenever the ring tempts you, if you chose a creature other than Faramir, you get a 1/1 white human creature token. Okay, so like slight card advantage with this. Again, limited to just your end step with one creature dying, and the ring tempting you gets creatures. Okay, so sure, you can do that. There are some repeatable ways for the ring to tempt you. I'm not sure about that in mono white as well. That's pretty specific. You're probably not going to choose this as like your main token generator. You're going to have other effects that do that. Slight card advantage, but yeah, overall not really that impactful. Okay, Faramir, I mean, you do have some potential to make some tokens as well, and you do generate a little bit of card advantage. Let's throw you up again. I feel like there's a lot of like C minus D plus commanders up there, and I think this is one of them, but I'll throw you in the C tier. Next up, Faramir, Prince of Ithilien, whatever it is. 3/3 human noble for 4 mana. This is a really, really, really just massive amount of commanders to go through. Okay, brain is working its hardest. And Azorius. There we go. See? At the beginning of your end step, choose an opponent. At the beginning of that player's next end step, you draw a card. If they didn't attack you this turn, otherwise create 3 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. This is a very interesting commander, a good politics commander. One that essentially you're like, hey, make wheel and deals with opponents and be like, hey, don't attack me. I'll draw a card. I'll make you a deal. I'll do something for you. If you do attack me, I'm going to get some humans. They're coming back at you. I got a lot of Anthem effects in place. So this can give you a good amount of tokens. This can also give you a decent amount of card advantage as well. You can take advantage of drawing cards as well. Again, thought reflection, those kind of things too. Double up your tokens annoy per session. Faramir, overall, I do think you're an interesting commander. I do think that you're probably up there in the probably C tier. Probably C tier commander. I think this is a kind of commander that really depends upon the pilot. If you're a very good politics player, this could definitely be up to a B tier commander. Moving on. Gandalf, Friend of the Shire. 2/4 Avatar Wizard Flash. You may cast sorcery spells with Light Flash when the ring tempts you. If you choose a creature like Gandalf, for the ring bearer, you draw a card. I mean, casting sorceries at instant speed is nice. There's a lot of good things that you can do with that. Drawing cards in the ring tempts you. Sure, that's also nice if you got another creature. Great. But overall, not really a lot going on. It's definitely not the worst commander. Again, sorceries being flash speed is nice in speed. So let's go with a C tier commander overall. There are some interesting things you do that. Yeah, extra turns out of nowhere can be kind of mean. Anyways, moving on. Gandalf White Rider, a 3/3 Avatar Wizard with Vigilance. Says whenever you cast spell creature control, get +1/+0 until end of turn, scry 1. Whenever Gandalf dies, you put it into library 5th on top. I don't really count that second part as anything beneficial really because yeah, that's kind of risky in my opinion. Sure, you can get around commander tax if you say, yeah, I'll just put it in my library. Cool. But if you can't get to it quick enough, then you are going to be in big trouble because if an opponent like Chaos warps one of your things, you're shuffling your library and your commander's probably gone forever. That being said, the amount of crazy pump that this has, the amount of potential this has to pump your army, again, make a army very quickly in mono white. You can do so with a lot of tokens. Do that. And then, yeah, cast spells that you can recast from your graveyard like Flashback, Jumpstart, do rebound spells as well. Cast spells that have buyback too. Yeah, you can do some pretty powerful things, hit for a ton. I mean, I wouldn't say that you're up to the S tier, but I would say, Gandalf, you are probably an A tier commander. Moving on. I got Gimli, Counter of Kills. This one's pretty fun. 4/3 Dwarf Warrior Trample. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, Gimli's going to deal 1 damage to that creature's controller. If this dealt damage to everyone, except for you, that'd be much better. I mean, this is still a pretty good commander. This one can, well, benefit you if you are giving your opponent's creatures or just playing against a creature-based strategy like a token deck or a go-wide strategy. And yeah, of course, there's ways to make it so Gimli can be even harder. Again, like, a doubling damage or a tripling damage effect, like a Fire Emancipation, or maybe like, Infect with Grafted Exoskeleton, that could really work with it too. Yeah, I mean, overall, a decent commander. I'd say that you are not all that impressive compared to some others, though. Let's throw Gimli. I like the design a lot, though, in the C tier. Moving on. Let's go with Gothmog, Morgul Lieutenant. A 3/3 human soldier. Whenever it enters the battlefield, and Mask Orcs 1. Creature tokens you control have Death Touch. Creature tokens having Death Touch is a pretty big thing. I mean, being able to say, hey, my creatures that are tokens, and there's plenty of ways to make tokens in mono black as well. Not nearly as many as, like, mono white. But so you can make quite a few. Hey, yeah, make a bunch of those, and have pretty effective attackers and blockers. Amassing Orcs, not really all that impactful. Sure, it gives you 1/1/1 Death Toucher, essentially. And yeah, if you amass Orcs more, it just gets slightly bigger, which really, again, doesn't really matter all that much for the most part. Yeah, not the worst, not the best. Death Touch your tokens, that's nice. Let's just go with a C tier commander. Joining quite a few in there. Next up, King of the Oathbreakers. This one I love the design of. 3/3 Flying Spirit Noble in Orzhov for 4 mana. Whenever it or another spirit you control comes target a spell, it phases out. Whenever it or another spirit you control phases in, create a tap 1/1 white spirit controlling with flying. This one I think has a ton of potential. There are certain cards out there like Heaven's Gate, Scapegoat as well, that can target basically your entire team for just 1 mana. I mean, there's other ways to do it too, just for a little bit more too. This one, though, I mean, yeah, you can basically just keep doubling up your army, or even more so, again, if you've got like Annoyed Procession in play. Yeah, every single time one of your spirits comes into play after phasing in, you're getting twice as many. You're getting 2 tokens instead of 1. And of course, there's that other Mondrak, I think is the one as well, that Phyrexian, that can double up as well. Yeah, I mean, this commander can just be impossible for your opponents to deal with. I mean, it's like temporarily gone. I mean, so if your opponents like want to swing at you and get through, sure, they can target it maybe if they can get through other creatures. There are, of course, ways to untap those tokens coming into play as well. So, yeah, Amulet Vigor or just untap effects in general. This is a commander that, again, it can be just impossible to take out. Again, very impossible to take out with like target removal, but also your removal, essentially, can, not your removal, your target spells can make it just gone in your entire team as well, and then come back with even more. Again, Anthems as well. Overall, King of the Oathbreakers, I do think you pack quite the punch, actually. And yeah, just looking kind of at what we have right now in the A tier and the S tier, I think, actually, in my opinion, you are an S tier commander. I'm going to throw you up there with Aragorn. So there you go. Next up, let's go Legolas Counter of Kills. A 2/3 Elf Archer in Simic for 4 reach. Yeah, whenever you scry, if Counter of Kills is tapped, you may untap it. If you do, or sorry, do this only once each turn. Whenever a creature bug controls dies, put a +1 counter on Legolas. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was some infinite shenanigans, which is why they put only once each turn. It's kind of like, hey, it gets pseudo-vigilance in a way. Great. Actually, there are definitely ways you go infinite with this. There's like that enchantment that you can put on this, or that has it tapped to scry 1. That's probably why they did that. Regardless, yeah, it gets counters on it. Not really all that impactful at all. I'm sure you could like Voltron it, but nope. I'm gonna throw a D tier. Sorry, Legolas, you're not at Gimli's speed right now. Next up, we've got Melindor? There we go. Swift Saver. Maybe. 3/3 Brit Soldier with flying for 4 mana in blue. Deals counter to a player. Exile to 1 target creature you own, return to the battlefield under your control. So, kind of like a really delayed blink commander. I mean, like, not delayed, but yeah, you get a blink. But sure, this is a blink commander that is much worse than something like a Brago. I mean, lots worse than Brago, but this is basically like, hey, yeah, you can blink one thing, just a creature, and bring it back when this gets through. Yeah, not impactful. Overall, I mean, you're probably like, again, like a D+ compared to some of the other ones, but let's throw you in the D tier. There you go. Next up, Old Man Willow. 4 mana in Golgari. Star Treefolk. Power tone is equal to the number of lands you control. When it attacks, you may sacrifice another creature or token. When you do, target creature bug controls is -2/-2. Not really all that impactful of a attack trigger. I mean, sure, you can take out small creatures. You can shrink some bigger creatures as well. You can get benefits from actually sacrificing a creature or token. Some death triggers. Yeah, this can get pretty massive. Again, you are in green, so you have ways to ramp, obviously. But overall, really not that impactful other than just being kind of like a heavy hitter that can sacrifice some things for nominal value. So, yeah, overall, gosh, yeah, I think I'm just going to have to throw you in the C tier. Let's do that. So there you go, C tier. Moving on, we've got Radagast the Brown. A 2/5 Avatar Wizard in green for 4 mana. Whenever it or another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top X cards of your library. X is that creature's mana value. If you have a creature card that doesn't share a creature type with a creature you control from those cards, put in your hand. Put the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. Basically, kind of like Volo, but in a different way. So this one's more focused on card advantage, and this can generate you an absurd amount of card advantage. This is the kind of commander where you kind of want to go like anti-tribal. You want to go like no overlap on your creatures, essentially. or very few. And if you do know, then yeah, you can just get an absurd amount of value out of this. I mean, there aren't too many ways to blink creatures in mono green. I mean, like Conjurer's Closet, yes. But yeah, ways to actually kind of get them back into play, ways to, you know, maybe have persist creatures or those kinds of things essentially come back into play. Yeah, you can get a good amount of card advantage with this, like a ton of card advantage, like creature, tribal, focusing on like going wide with creature types. Yeah, there's a lot of powerful creatures in green. Overall, the amount of card advantage this can generate you is pretty absurd. Again, this is not limited to like once each turn or only on your turn. So yeah, the amount of card advantage that this has, I think I'm going to throw this up in the A tier. So there you go, Radagast the Brown. Moving on. We've got Saradoc, Master of Buckland, a 2/4 halfling citizen. Whenever it or another non-token creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under control, create a 1/1 white halfling creature token. Tap 2 other untapped halflings you control. Saradoc gets +2/+0 and gains lifelink until end of turn. Cool. You can pump your commander slightly. That's nice. You are limited again to non-token, unfortunately. I mean, I guess that could very easily go infinite if it wasn't the case you just need like one Anthem. But basically, sure, whenever your power 2 or less creatures, small creatures come into play, yeah, you get halflings. There are ways to blink essentially your entire army. So yeah, if you get a bunch of low power creatures and then blink them all, and then they come back like Eerie Interlude, sure, you can get a ton of halflings from that. You can make a lot of tokens with this. You know, tapping them to give lifelink really not that big of a deal. Sure, you could swing through and be like, haha, I have tricked you. I will now tap my halflings and pump 10 power. And then I will cast a spell to untap them and tap them again, and you're gone. Haha. That takes a decent amount of setup to actually get right, but overall, yeah, a good token generator. The more I think about it, that Eerie Interlude kind of interplay. So yeah, you are limited to power 2 less though, and Anthems really kind of, you know, hurt you actually. Ugh. I mean, the C tier is getting, I think you're probably like a C+ commander with that token generation. I mean, there is a good amount of token generation potential. Oh, goodness. The more and more I think about like Eerie Interlude, those kinds of cards. Oh, you're either a C or a B. I'll throw you up in the B tier. There we go. You're definitely like a C+, B- though. Okay, anyways, moving on. Shagrant, Loot Bearer, 4/4 Orc Soldier. Whenever it attacks, attach up to 1 target equipment to it, then amass Orcs X, or X is the number of equipment attached to it. I mean, cool. You can cheat equipment onto it. Yeah, there's some pretty big equipment that you can cheat onto it, which is nice. You can hit pretty hard with it. Again, I kind of have a problem with amassing. I just don't like amass all that much. Again, because when it comes to making tokens, you'd rather go wide than tall, and amassing forces you to go tall. So, sure, you get to amass a good amount if you keep equipping things, and you get a big token that can hit for a lot. Whoop-de-doo. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, cheating equipment onto it is probably the biggest thing, and this can be a pretty decent Voltron commander with that kind of style. There are better ones out there that basically do this, though. Overall, I'm going to go with a C-tier commander. Next up. Sharky, Tyrant of the Shire, a 2/4 Avatar Rogue, active abilities land your opponent's control, can't be activated unless they're mana abilities, has all active abilities land your opponent's control except mana abilities, mana of any type can be spent to activate Sharky's abilities. This one is entirely dependent on your opponents. If they are playing against a budget player like me, this is probably going to be pretty garbage, because I am not utilizing, you know, some of the higher end activated abilities of lands, because most of my lands are pretty simplistic, because you don't need, you know, those higher end, tons of money lands to actually have an effective, very good deck. So, Sharky, yeah, you are entirely dependent on your opponents. Entirely dependent on them actually playing lands that have really good activated abilities. Or I guess you could play them and then donate them. Sure, that's something as well, but cool. I mean, overall, let's throw you in the D tier, Sharky. You're so specific. Next up, Strider Ranger of the North. 4/4 landfall. Whenever land is about to control target creature, gets ++1 till end of turn. Creature has 4 or greater power, basically against first strike. Yeah, not very impactful. I mean, sure, yeah, there's some landfall shenanigans you can do to pump in combat. There's other more effective ways to pump. Yeah, no, overall, Strider, I'm sorry. Just overall, compared to other commanders in this set, you are definitely, in my opinion, a D tier commander. Maybe C at the very, very highest. Maybe you're B plus-ish, but not quite even. Next up, Ugluk of the White Hand, a 3/3 Orc Soldier that is in Golgari, goodness gracious. Rakdos, there we go, we got there. Whenever another creature you control dies, you get a counter on this. If that creature was a Goblin or an Orc, 2 counters on instead. Yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of ways to get a lot of Goblins out. Sure, you could go Orcs as well, but yeah, more likely, again, you are going to go Goblin Tribal because, hey, you are in red as well, so do that. And then, yeah, get a lot of counters on this. Maybe fling it. That's probably the direction I would go, like Goblin Tribal with some fling effects as well. You know, Goblin Bombardment, a lot of your tokens, sacrifice them, ping someone down, and then just fling this giant creature, essentially, and take, you know, your opponents down with that, I guess. Maybe feign death to get back into play and restart things. Overall, not the best commander again. Having access to red with goblins, though, is nice. Let's go with a C-tier commander. Next up, Ymir, Marshal of Rohan. A 4/4 humanoid with haste. Whenever one or more other attacking legendary creature you control die, untap all creature control after this phase, the control combat phase, ability triggers only once each turn. Yeah, good thing they put that on there. There are definitely some infinite loops you could probably do with this. That being said, yeah, an extra combat effect on a commander that you can very, very easily get. Again, if you go Legendary Tribal and you have a free sacrifice outlet, there you go. You got an extra combat. There's some other attack triggers that you're going to take advantage of as well. Yeah, pretty impactful, pretty effective, I would say. Let's go with a B tier commander. There's definitely some crazy things that you can do with this one. Next up, Eowyn, Fearless Knight. 3/4 Hasty Human Knight in Boros. Enters the battlefield, exile target creature dwelling controls with greater power. Legendary creature control gain protection from each of the creature's powers or creature's color till end of turn. So, I mean, getting rid of a creature with bigger power, that is a really good thing. And again, it's not like exile and returns when this leaves. No, that's just exiled, gone. You are obviously in a color that has blink effects. And going like legendary, legendary tribal and getting protection from creatures essentially of that color, you can do some pretty crazy things. So you could basically get your entire army protection from all colors until the end of the turn if you blink this enough times. And again, it's got haste, so keep swinging with you as well. Yeah, I think this one's actually pretty impactful. Again, just because, again, it's not like a Fiend Hunter type effect where it just stores up that creature. That creature's just gone. In 3 power, you're basically going to be able to get rid of all your opponent's better creatures. So, yeah, you can do some pretty crazy things with this in a Legendary Tribal Blink deck. So, overall, I think Eowyn, actually, I'm going to throw you up in the A tier, actually, with your removal potential as well as your, potential to give your army protection from things. So, it's going to be hard for your opponents to actually take your things out. Next up, Galadriel Gift Giver. 4/4 Elf Noble. 4/5 in green, enters the battlefield or attacks you as 1, +1 counter target creature, food token, treasure token, meh, and meh. Yeah, sure. ETB on that or attack. Only getting one of those, even if you got all 3 of those, that would be nice. That would be a good amount of value, but overall, just not impactful. Again, just not very impactful. Sure, on attack, you get it as well. Galadriel. Again, I think this is one of those, like, sure, I mean, you're probably choosing treasure token every time, but an ETB give you a treasure token or attack treasure token? No, not really all that impactful at all. So, yeah, if you had Panorama Archon, great, you can double that up. But overall, I think D tier commander, maybe C, but yeah, probably D tier commander for me. Get off the gray. 3/4 Avatar Wizard. Whenever you cast an source spell, choose one that's been chosen. Tap or untap target permanent. 3 damage to each opponent. Copy target source spell. You control targets with the copy. Put Gandalf on top of its library. Again, kind of like I mentioned earlier with the other Gandalf that goes in the library. Be careful of that one. Yeah, if you've got a way to just draw at the top, great. That's a good way to protect it. That being said, yeah, you do have to actually get to that eventually, unless you can blink Gandalf, which there are definitely ways to do. There's some pretty crazy effects that you can have. Again, if you literally just go like, hey, extra turns and then copy them, that can go pretty crazy. So, yeah, and tapping on tapping can be pretty great too. Overall, yeah, I mean, it does have a limitation, but again, there are ways to get around that by blinking it or Conjure's Closet blinking it to repeat that. Extra turns, yeah, definitely a gross direction you can take this one. Overall, yeah, pretty impactful, but not quite an A tier commander in my opinion. So let's go with the B tier. Moving on, another Gandalf the White. 4/5 Avatar Wizard Flash. You may cast legendary spells and artifact spells with Flash. Legendary, permanent, or artifact in the battlefield, or leaving the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a you control triggered ability triggers this whole time. Gross. This commander is pretty gross. Basically, Flash Travel. Yeah, you can go legendaries, but more likely you're probably going to go artifacts if you're trying to be more broken. And yeah, casting those on your opponent's turns and doubling up ETBs and LTBs with this, that's crazy. There are definitely some combos that can be had with this. Yeah, I mean, going just artifacts with doubling effects, gross. Yeah, and legendaries too. You can definitely utilize some legendary spells too that can be very impactful. I mean, that one legendary sorcery that exiles things that aren't legendary, that can be really impactful as well. Overall, Gandalf the White, you are very impressive. I think, again, you're kind of like an A+, S-, but I think I'm going to go you up to the S tier. You're going to go to the S tier. You're very impactful for the right build. And again, yeah, legendary can be very impactful as well if you're going that build, but again, artifacts is just a bit more broken. So here we go. Landfall, Horizon Witness, a 3/4 Bird Noble flying in white for 5 mana. Whenever 2 or more creatures you control attack a player, target attacking creature without flying gains flying until end of turn. Hot garbage, basically. I mean, okay, it can give one other creature evasion, but overall, 5 mana for a creature that gives you an attack trigger that is that unimpactful. Hot garbage. Sorry, Landreval. D tier. Next up, Saruman the White, a 4/4 Avatar Wizard in blue for 5 mana with Ward 2. Whenever you catch second spell each turn, amass works too. I've already given my opinion on amassing and just how terrible I think it is compared to other token generating effects because it goes tall versus wide. Going tall, not nearly as good. If this went wide, it does not though. Yeah, cool. You can cast your second spell and get your army slightly larger. Yay! Saruman, you garbage. D tier. Moving on. We've got Sauron the Lidless Eye. A 4/4 avatar that costs 5 mana in Rakdos, enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature, opponent controls on turn, untap it, gains haste till turn. Pay 1 black-red, creatures you control get +2/+0 until turn, each opponent loses 2 life. I mean, if you get infinite mana of all colors, you win. You can drain your opponents out, so that's nice. ETB, gain control of opponent's creature. That's very nice, so you can actually say, hey, yeah, let's just take that creature and fling it at you, or sacrifice it with my Goblin Bombardment. Essentially, there are ways to just, say that is basically now a removal spell. Of course, there are ways to copy this in red. There are ways to get extra token copies of it. That will die, yes, but you still get that ETB. And again, that ETB is not limited to, once each turn. It's not limited to a certain creature with a certain power or whatnot. Yeah, overall, again, it has that potential to, you get infinite mana, you win. You also can just really control the board with that, gain control of your opponent's best creatures, swing at them, and then sacrifice them for value, too. Yeah, I'd say that I'm going to put Sauron, actually, in the... Let's go with the B tier, actually. It's quite impactful. Not as impactful as some of the A tiers, but it's quite impactful. Moving on. Other Sauron, the Necromancer. 4/4 Avatar with Menace that costs 5 mana in black. Whenever it attacks, exile target creature card from your graveyard. Create a tapped and attacking token that's copy that card, except it's a 3/3 Wraith with Menace. Begin the next end step, exile the token unless Sauron is your ring bearer. Yeah, Sauron's your ring bearer, great. You can keep that around. Getting token copies of your creatures can be very impactful. This is on an attack trigger, unfortunately, so it is limited to that. That being said, yeah, you can get some massive ETBs out of your graveyard very, very, very impactfully. I said that completely wrong, but you know what I mean. Basically, mill yourself or, tutor cards in your graveyard. And there's plenty of ways to do that in black to get the exact creatures that you need from your graveyard. I wish you had access to populate effects because that'd be quite nice, but you really don't. But yeah, overall, Sauron the Necromancer, if you were in other colors, you'd definitely have more impact. Again, red would give you extra combats too, which would be nice. You can get some big things out of your graveyard. Overall, I think I'm gonna put you in the B tier. Just you have potential, but not quite as much as some others. Speaking of potential, though, Shadowfax, Lord of Horses, 4/4 horse. Horses you control have haste, and also the reminder text. Remember that. That is in Boros for 5 mana. Whenever it attacks, you may put a creature card with lesser power from your hand on the battlefield tapped and attacking. That is a huge trigger, and again, you are in red, so there are ways to get extra combats. Obviously, cheat out some, first up, smaller things you can cheat out that still can be very impactful, like high mana value, 0 power, or, low power creatures that just have a really big ETB or really big effect. That can definitely help you out. But obviously, if you get Blackblade Forge on this again, you can get to the point where it's like, hey, I'll cheat out any creature. Oh, Blightsteel Colossus is coming into play, essentially, because I just attacked with this. Or you can go Horse Tribal if you really want to. Yeah, overall, though, I mean, maybe I'm just enamored with Shadowfax because I absolutely love the design. But yeah, I think Shadowfax overall, again, being able to cheat in some massive things can be really huge. Let's go with an A tier commander again, especially since you're in red and you can get extra combats and do some crazy things with that. I mean, cheating in creatures that give you extra combats too, it's not to love. Next up, Balrog, Flame of Undune. You're probably a D tier. Here we go, 7/7 Trampling Avatar Demon for 5 in Rakdos. Yeah, I mean, normally these days we wouldn't be like, oh yeah, there's probably no downside to this, right? Because it's just, it's how commander is these days, how, Magic is. When you let your creature and opponent controls dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. Okay, that is awful. That is terrible. That is, oh no. Yeah, your opponents can just be like, oh, hey, we really need to get rid of that commander. Does anyone have a legendary creature they can sacrifice or swing at me and I'll block it? Okay, it's gone. It's not even like sacrifice the Balrog, because if it was sacrifice the Balrog, there are of course ways to reanimate it, ways to get it back out, feign death effects. But no, hey, if any of your opponent's legendary creatures die, this is just gone. I mean, yeah, you're going to put it back in the command zone, but then recast it. So there goes your savings of a 7/7 Trampler. Absolute hot garbage. You might get the worst commander in the set reward, except for probably Bill, who gives people horses, but you're definitely up there. Anyways, moving on. The Mouth of Sauron. A 3/4 Human Advisor for 5 in Dimir. Enters the battlefield. Target player mills 3 cards, then mass Orcs X, or X is the number of instant cards in the player's graveyard. Again, you've heard my opinion on amassing. Amassing is nice, but not great, because, hey, you're going tall with 1 token versus wide. So sure, you can make 1 really big Orc army. Cool. Whatever. Also, you're dependent on milling players and getting, the right cards in their graveyard. Sure, yes, if you have a giant mill strategy where you're milling opponents for a ton, and you're like, all right, cool, all right, I'll blink this. And then, yeah, you mill 3, and now you've got 20 Insolars in the graveyard. My amass Orcs is massive. Yay! You need ways to get it through. You need ways to do that. You're dependent on a token that can just be bounced and taken care of. Overall, yeah, not good. For a 5-mana commander, not good. Let's go with the D tier. Maybe I'm just being hard on you because I don't like amass all that much. But yeah, maybe you're a C minus, but I'm gonna go with a D. Next up, Watcher in the Water. Gross. 9/9 Kraken for 5 mana in blue. Enters the battlefield, tap 9 sound counters on it. Whenever you draw a card during an opponent's turn, create a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token. On top of that, whenever tentacle control dies, untap to 1 target Kraken and put a stun counter up to 1 target non-land permanent. Okay, so wheel effects, yes, are incredibly good with this, especially instant speed wheel effects. Or yeah, if you got Valkenori out and you can cast instant speed, wheel effects on your opponent's turns, do that. Draw a ton of cards. Also, giant X spells as well, especially that one Convoke one can be great for you too. Draw a ton of cards on your opponent's turns, make an absurd amount of tokens, sacrifice them for value as well, and of course, untap Krakens. I mean, yeah, you can go Sea Monster Hub if you really want to. I'd probably just go Wheels mostly. And then, yeah, untap this, put stun counters. That is a huge part as well, because although this does enter with stun counters on it, unless you got like a Torpor Orb, you get to distribute stun counters essentially. And by putting them on your opponent's non-land permanents and utilizing proliferate effects, you can get even more stun counters on them to make it so they basically can't untap their non-land permanents that are key. So yeah, this is a giant token generator, which also has the chance of, hitting for basically lethal on its own with like, a little bit of pump and like a double strike effect. And on top of that, this can just control your opponent's boards. So yeah, the Watch from the Water, overall the right build. I do think actually that you are, in my opinion, an S tier commander. There you go. Next up, Tom Bombadil, a 4/4 God Bard, because that's the thing that costs Wooburg. Has 4 or more counters. As long as there are 4 or lower counters among sagas you control, has Hexproof and Indestructible. Those are 2 incredible keywords, and 2 together that make this incredibly hard to deal with. Whenever the final ability of a saga you control resolves, reveal cards to the top of your library to reveal a saga card. That card on the battlefield, the rest of the bottom of your library, random order. This ability triggers only once each turn. Now, if that didn't trigger once each turn, or didn't trigger only once each turn, this would be even higher of a tier. My goodness, though, Saga Tribal, this, and you just got some more sagas, and you're going to keep getting more sagas in some set coming up, I am sure. But when it comes to number of sagas you have access to right now, it's apparently 102. So yeah, you do have access to all 5 colors, so that's a ton. Free value, essentially, in a commander that's really hard to deal with. Of course, there's ways to play with those counters, ways to get more, like Proliferate, ways to get those sagas back out of your graveyard, ways to maybe shuffle them back into your graveyard to get them back again. Yeah, and again, this triggers only once each turn, sure, but also, hey, hit trigger on your opponent's turns as well. There's plenty of, instant speed proliferate effects. Do that. Get those, value out of those sagas. Get more sagas into play. This can go pretty crazy. And of course, yeah, there's also ways to just, hey, get all your enchantments out of your graveyard back into play and then just do it all again. So yeah, Tom Bombadil, yeah, in my opinion, you are definitely up there. An S tier commander. Again, if there wasn't that restriction to once each turn, this would just probably be actually in a category of its own. So there you go. Next up, Witch King of Egmar. A 5/3 Wraith Noble for 5 in black with flying that says whenever one or more creatures deal combat damage to you, each opponent sacrifices a creature that dealt combat damage to you this turn, and the ring tempts you. Discard a card, gains indestructible turn, tap it. This is a good punishing commander where it's like your opponents are going to have a hard time actually attacking you, because if they do, they are going to have to sacrifice something. Hey, they might not have many creatures if you have other ways to really kind of mitigate the number of creatures they have in play, other ways to force them to sacrifice. They're down to like 1 creature, and it's like their favorite creature, their best creature. They're not going to be swinging at you. On top of that, this can be hard to deal with again just by discarding cards. You can give it indestructible. There's ways to actually benefit from discarding cards as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a decent commander. Again, it's a pretty good, defensive commander, I would say. A pretty good deterrent. Overall, yeah, it's pretty impactful, but I'm going to throw you up in the B tier. You're kind of a middle-of-the-road effect. Next up, Aramir of the Rittermark, a 5/4 human knight with haste that says attacks if you control a creature with the greatest power among creatures on the battlefield, you get a 1/1. This is awful. This actually might get the award for the worst commander instead. This and the Balrog are probably competing with each other, and Bill. Not Bill, sorry, Bill the Pony. What's the one that gives out horses? Whatever that one is, that one. But yeah, basically a D tier commander. This is awful. This doesn't even give you a guarantee of making just a 1/1. This is like, no, you have to have the biggest creature on the board. So yeah, this is just terrible. I am very sorry. You are awful, awful. Next up, Aragorn in Arwen Wed. 3/6 human elf noble for 6 mana and Celestia with vigilance. Enters the battlefield or attacks, you get a counter on each other creature you control. You gain 1 life for each other creature you control. Yeah, life gain shenanigans. A lot of life gain can be had with this. A lot of counters can be had with this on your other creatures. Of course, there's ways to double up tokens to make your army even wider, so you can get, even more life. Ways to get more counters out there. Again, like Delving Season does both, obviously. A very good card. Have you heard of that one? You've got ways to blink. You're in white, so you can take advantage of that ETB. Yeah, sure, you can take advantage of the attack creature, but more so the ETB. Yeah, going wide, gaining a bunch of life. There's ways to take advantage of that too. Overall, a good commander. Middle of the road commander, in my opinion, so you're going to be a B tier commander. Next up, Gwaihir? I'm probably wrong on that. The Windlord, a 4/4 Bird Noble. This spell costs 2 less to cast as long as you've drawn 2 more cards this turn. Flying Vigilance. Other birds you control have Vigilance. Bird Tribal with Vigilance. yeah, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the best thing in the world, though. I mean, yeah, there's a decent amount of birds, and obviously pretty much every bird out there is going to have evasion. There's a decent amount of birds out there. 264, so there's a good amount. I mean, yeah, it's not the best tribe. It's not the worst tribe. A 6-mana commander, though, that can potentially, yeah, be a 4-mana commander if you're drawing cards. Cool. Sure. Yeah, I mean, if it was like, this spell costs 1 less cast for each card you draw on this turn, that would be much better because you could recast it much more often. Vigilance is nice, but not, the best thing overall. I mean, you're not the worst, you're not the best. Let's throw you in the C tier. Moving on. We've got Quick Beam Upstart Ent, a 5/6 tree folk that costs 6 mana in green. Whenever it and other tree folk enters battlefield under control, up to 2 target creatures each get +2/+2 and gain trample on a turn. Tree folk tribal. Okay. I mean, tree folk tribal, there's probably a decent amount of tree folk out there, actually. This set definitely gave you more. Let's look really quick right now, because I'm flummoxed. Is that a word? I don't know. 73 tree folk out there. Apparently, say a decent amount. I mean, this ETB is nice. Sure, you can, pump your army. You're dependent on having a lot of tree folk on the deck, though, and changelings, too. Overall, yeah, not the worst, not the best. Let's throw you also in the C tier. Again, I told you the C tier was going to be just full. Next up, Saruman of Many Colors. A 5/4 Avatar Wizard that is in, oh goodness, Esper. There we go. My brain is taxing right now. Here we go. 6 mana. Ward, discarded an enchantment, instant sorcery card. So that's actually a pretty good ward effect because your opponents will have to actually really get rid of something in their hand. And if they don't have the required card to get rid of their hand, they're going to have to, well, not do that. Whenever you cast your second spell, each turn, each opponent mills 2 cards. When one of our cards are milled this way, exile target enchantment, instant sorcery card with equal or lesser mana value from the card opponent's card. Copy it. You cast card without paying its mana cost. Yeah, a good amount of card advantage with this. Potentially, you are dependent on hitting the right thing. But yeah. You can definitely do so in many circumstances. Again, it's each spell, second spell each turn, so that counts your opponent's turns as well. You got a bunch of instant speeds. Yeah, there you go. You can get extra value out of that. So overall, yeah, I mean, I'd say it's a very, very solid commander. One that does a good amount for you. It's probably between a B and an A. I'm going to go with an A tier commander, actually. I can give you a good amount of value throughout the game. Next up, Sauron the Dark Lord, a 7/6 avatar that costs 3 blue, black, red. Ward, sacrifice a legendary artifact or legendary creature. So that is a big, big, big sacrifice effect for a ward. This is going to, well, be like, hey, do you want to sacrifice your commander? Because it's the only legendary thing in play most of the time, and most opponents won't want to do that. So this kind of has hexproof in a way. Where opponent casts a spell, Amass Orcs 1. Again, you know my opinion on Amass, but hey, this is like the easiest way to get Amass. Opponent's going to be casting spells, you get free Amass. You can get a pretty large Orc army in absolutely no time. Whenever an army you control deals counter to a player, the ring tempts you. That's nice to get your army through in many ways. Where the ring tempts you, may discard your hand, draw 4 cards. That is one of the biggest effects on this, because hey, you got a decent amount of ring tempting effects in these colors. Do so. Basically just wheel every single time. I mean, 4 cards, yeah, might not replace your entire hand, but it will if you've got like a Thought Reflection in play. It'll do that and then some. Of course, you can take advantage of drawing cards in many ways. You can take advantage of discarding cards in many ways. This is a very good commander. It does have a very large mana cost, though. And yeah, it definitely has a lot of effects to it as well. So I think overall, you're not quite an S-tier commander. You are an A-tier commander. Moving on, Shelob, Child of Ungoliant, an 8/8 Spider Demon, Death Touch Ward 2. Other spiders you control have Death Touch Ward 2. Whenever a creature dealt damage this turn by a spider you control dies, create a token's copy of it, except it's a food artifact with basically a food effect, and loses all other card types. So basically it copies your opponent's creatures that aren't creatures, but sometimes it's actually better for like ones that have ongoing effects that you just want to keep in play. In a Wrath, a normal Wrath that just takes out creatures, won't take them out now, and yeah, you can sacrifice them, to gain some life too. Spider Tribal, there's a decent amount of spiders out there, and a decent amount of spider token generation too. This is like the incredible commander for it. This is a great design for it. Yeah, I mean, you are limited to Spider Tribal to really take advantage of this most. Obviously, Changelings 2, it has a good amount of potential, though. Their lure effects can be incredible with it. And again, you've got an 8/8 Death Touch Ward 2 for just 6 mana overall, so you can just Voltron someone out very easily as well. Overall, Shelob, yeah, lure effects work great with this too, I should mention, and fight effects too. I think you are an A-tier commander. You are a very heavy hitter. Next up, Witch King, Bringer of Ruin, a 5/3 with Noble Flying. Whenever it attacks, defending player, sacrifice a creature they control the least power among creatures they control. This is pretty awful in my opinion. Yes, sometimes their most valuable creature is going to be their least power creature, but other times it's like, oh, okay, I've got a 1/1 token. That's, yeah, I'll sacrifice that. It doesn't say non-token or anything like that. So yeah, sometimes this will, really pay off. You're like, that is the exact creature I want you to sacrifice. Other times, no, you're paying 6 mana for a 5/3 flyer that is very dependent on attacking. Let's throw you in the D tier. I'm very sorry. Maybe C tier, but let's go D tier. All right, next up. Got Fangorn, Tree Shepherd, a 4/10 Tree Folk for 7 mana. Tree Folk control Vigilance. Whenever one or more Tree Folk you control attack at twice that much green, you don't lose mana. Unspent green mana special phase end. Yeah, I mean, this can be pretty impactful. Again, Tree Folk Tribal, even more so than that other one. Yeah, I mean, I think overall, hey, be able to swing with your Tree Folk and usually have a bunch of toughness you can swing through, protect them in combat in many ways, get a ton of mana, and you don't lose it. Yeah, I think Fangorn. I think just because you are getting more and more Tree Folk access to over the years, especially this latest set, we're going to throw you in the B tier, actually. So, there you go. And then finally, the Balrog Durin's Bane. Much better than the other Balrog. 7/5 Avatar Demon for 7 mana in Rakdos. Spell cost bonus cast for each permanent sacrifice this turn. Haste. Keep blocked by legendary creatures. When the Balrog dies, store target artifact or creature and opponent controls. This one, okay, is basically a 2 mana commander. You are probably not going to spend more than 2 mana, a lot, to actually cast this, even when it has commander tax, because that actually deals with commander tax as well. So if, again, you or opponent sacrifice things, you get a giant discount for this commander. Sacrificing treasures, they basically count for twice as much for this commander. Again, in a simple effect like Innocent Blood, making every sacrifice a creature discounts this by 4. You're going to be able to get it out again and again for just 2 mana. Hasty 7/5, that is kind of unblockable, because if you keep your opponent's boards clear of legendary creatures, which usually is just their commander, unless you're playing against legendary creature tribal, usually just their commander, you can get through on them, and they might even not be willing to block with that. And yeah, a damage doubler, a damage tripler can just be game ending with this, making it a 2-shot or 1-shot KO. It's already a 3-shot KO. It's that death trigger is nice as well. Again, Feigned Death effects can really take advantage of that. Overall, very impressive commander. Yeah, I think this one's got a good amount of potential out there with the right build. And yeah, just think about something like Sarkhan's Unsealing to really take advantage of, to like board wipe again and again and again on a cast trigger because it has so much power. Warstorm Surge as well. Yeah, I think overall you've got a lot of potential. We'll throw you up in the A tier commander. So there you go. So yeah, oh my goodness, this was quite the undertaking, and 85 commanders to go through, and yeah, we've got a glut of C's like I mentioned earlier, but I do think there's a big distinction in this set, especially from the ones that they're just like, okay, yeah, C's and D's, there's especially the D tier, it's like, these are just here for flavor mostly, or hey, we made like 80 different Frodos, so yeah, there's gonna be some bad ones in there. And then, yeah, the distinction between the top tier, though, I think is pretty distinct. There's definitely some critters up there that are some really heavy hitters as well. Regardless, let me know what your thoughts are on this as well. Again, it was a giant undertaking. A lot to really kind of, have to, actually place them within these tiers. So let me know what your thoughts are on all this. Which ones did I really mess up on? Which ones did I miss on? And with that, this episode is coming to a close, so let me know what your thoughts are on it in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.